So, Jackson, you are a big time founder and entrepreneur, but you couldn't do that without your faith.
Mm.
And I wanted you to be able to share your testimony of what God did in your life. How did you get to where you are now?
You know, the spirit, right? To honor it, I could have done it without my faith,
Sure.
but I chose not to.
Right.
Right. And that's a huge opportunity. We as human beings, we are often more scared of freedom than we even realize.
Oh, big
There's a
time.
responsibility and accountability that comes with freedom that we don't necessarily understand or think through. And I myself, I'm at the beginning stages of learning about that, right? Life is a process of learning.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it was always a question of faith, right? And what
Mm-hmm.
am I going to put my faith? What is faith? I remember being in Uruguay, and it was my first day there. I didn't speak the language very well.
Mm-hmm.
I had I got to go to what's called a mission training center for 2 months before I went on that mission. And so
Mm-hmm.
in 2 months, yeah, I was 19 years old. I was trying to figure out
Wow.
the scriptures still. I was trying to figure out like the churches and other
Mhm.
religions too, and what the culture of Uruguay was going to be like. And they put me in advanced Spanish in that
Wow.
mission training center. I was not advanced. I was beginner. I didn't know
Right.
anything. And so now I'm stuck in this room and I'm begging them, please let me change groups. Like I don't belong in this class. And they felt that there was something about my leadership that they wanted me to be in there. And trust me, Monica, it didn't look pretty. I don't, I don't know what type of
Mm.
leadership they were talking about. I mean, I was disciplined and I was getting after it, but I mean, I was kind of a get out of my way. I know why I'm here type of individual.
Uh-huh.
And so so here I go with this 2 months experience. And while everybody else is learning stuff, I'm literally in the dictionary memorizing words, just trying
Wow.
to figure out how the heck am I going to communicate when I get to this country. And so I get
Right.
there, and this guy from he was from Houston, Texas. I was so grateful. What was his name? He took me out, and we got chased by a dog. I was like checklist, bucket list, all the things you hear about happening. Right, got chased by a dog.
Right.
Almost, we got to ride bikes. We didn't have bikes on the mission. They always got stolen, so it was very rare that you
Um,
got to have bicycles. And we go teach this little girl, and she is 8 years old, maybe 9, and he gives me the chance to teach. And
um,
I explained to her in the best broken Spanish I could, like, one thing that's important to have as we learn about Jesus is faith.
mhm.
This little girl goes, "What's faith?" And
Ooh,
I'm, it's a belief.
how?
And it's a belief in an action. And I got
Mhm.
those two words, and I knew that. So it's like, good. And she goes, "What's a belief?"
Oh,
And I
wow.
was like,
How
I
do you
looked at him.
explain that?
I was like, oh my
Oh
gosh.
my gosh.
It was two of the most intimidating years of my life, going through trying to figure out, how do you teach the Savior's way? How do you simplify what you're doing so that a child can understand it, but so that also adults can hear and
Right.
value
Right.
the actions, the application of all of this for their own lives. So that's where
Right.
that's where a lot of it started.
Oh my God. And it's just to be put in that predicament. I remember when I was in, I got orders to go to Cuba, and my Spanish was somewhat, it was building. I was between that beginner intermediate stage,
Mhm.
because you hang out with everybody that speaks Spanish. So I was gradually picking up. Sometimes I would sound Puerto Rican, sometimes I'd sound, Mexican, so they were always going, "Are you Puerto Rican? Are you Mexican, Vata?" And so to go to another country and now going, I know how to say it in English, but how do you actually explain it? And I think for me to even go, well, how would I do that? And I think we can only look to the Lord and go, He led by example,
My love.
you know, and you're just like, wow,
Yeah.
that had to have been tough
It's
to
love.
do. So
It's
yeah,
love.
love. It
And there I
is.
was. So I got assigned to my area, and I go out. And granted, while I was in I told you I was learning the dictionary, right? Reading the words, learning, but I knew that I thought if I'm going to get there, what is the one thing I want to be able to communicate about, right? What would
Right.
it be? And so I settled in on love. I said, love is supposedly the most powerful force in the
Yeah.
universe.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to learn everything I can about how to talk about love in Spanish. And so for my next 3 months while I was there, and as I helped these people, at the end of my first 3 month stint, where you then get assigned to another area, and you're crying, everybody's crying, it's become family and home for you.
Right.
They called me Elder Amor
Uh,
instead of Elder Callum.
uh-huh.
And that Elder Amor means elder love,
Uh-huh.
because that's all I really knew how to talk about. And a
Wow.
little bitty town that was afflicted by years of gossip and years of just challenges of small town stuff, like
Uh-huh.
that little power of love began
Wow.
to shift the way that the people interacted with each other, because we kept it that simple.
Wow. That's amazing. So here you go in as a 19-year-old, not even wanting to be there, to coming out now as an elder of love. And you're just like, the Lord was truly on you, and leading you and where you had to go. So did you go through the rest of your mission trip? How did that mission trip end?
Yeah. So I'll if I said that wrong, I absolutely wanted to be there, but it was terrifyingly scared.
Yeah,
Terrifying
yeah,
scary,
yeah.
right? So I mean, day 3, I had to speak in front of the congregation, and I went to a very small town where
Mhm.
I had to be one of the leaders of the congregation. I was what's called the
Uh-huh.
second counselor, which is kind of like the right hand man to the president,
Okay.
right? And
Okay.
so I don't speak the language. I'm just 19. I'm supposed to be this guy. They all come up to me to talk to me, and it sounded just like this. And
Right.
I'm like studying facial expressions, and some people look a little bit concerned or upset. Other people are like happy and like they want to like hug me.
Yeah.
But like it's just noise. There's just this
Oh my
noise.
gosh.
And I go and I sit down in a chair. I put my head in my hands and I just
Uh-huh.
started bawling.
Oh no.
I mean, 19-year-old kid that would jump off of any cliff, that would do
Right.
anything in the world. But I mean, now I'm literally just crying in this chair. And I hear
Oh
my
no.
companion, he comes over, and I hear him go like this. Ha da 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 ha 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 da 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 da. And I knew he was just trying to explain to them that I was gonna be okay. I'd figure it out. I mean, I could
Mhm.
understand the context, but like no, it was hard. It's very hard to explain
It
what it's
is.
like to live in a new area and to go do something like that. And so why would we do that? What is it about
Yeah.
us as human beings? For me, I had an incredible purpose. I knew the value of the home my mom raised me in. I had my
Mm.
mom and my 5 older sisters, and they taught me how to love. They taught me what was great about life. I
Wow.
also had my dad's side, and on my dad's side, my step siblings were treated like trash by my
Mm.
father, and they returned the favor, and
Oh
so did my
no.
stepmom. And so we
Mhm.
had on the other side an absolute broken home of hate and of
Mhm.
darkness and of obscurity and difficulties. We eventually learned to heal and find our substance as a family, but it was growing up with an extreme sense of love on one side, and
Mhm.
the essence of hate and
Right.
darkness on the other. And I knew that with the blessing I had to have the escape that my step siblings did not have, they were stuck in that 24/7.
Right.
I would have regretted it the rest of my life if I didn't
Mhm.
go and help other families that were stuck in a situation like that know that there is a better way. There are other opportunities, and if we fix our families, right? If we
Mhm.
abide by principles of love, if we learn to forgive,
Mhm.
life can be amazing. And so I
Yeah.
I loved
Yeah.
every minute of that 2 years.
And it's so cool to hear people that we don't have to become the product of our environment. You see so many people that go, well, he was raised and with only one mom, or he was out on the streets, and that doesn't
Heard
mean you
that
have
all
to
growing up.
become. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Every stat said I was destined for
Yeah.
failure.
Yeah.
Every stat said we would never make it. And my mission president, although he had the perfect family, pretty much it seemed that way. Like
Mhm.
it was like he was such a great leader, and he taught us on that mission something I had already abided by for decades. And my 2 decades came from knowing that I was not supposed to make it. And
Uh-huh.
he said that for his family, 6 kids, he knew that statistically speaking, only 2 of them would serve a mission. Only 2 of the
Wow.
6. And he didn't
Wow.
know how to pick which one would do it. And he said, you know what? If I don't want to be a statistic, I have to do things above average. I have to be
Right.
willing to put in more work and live an above average lifestyle and create disciplines for myself and be beyond the statistic. We can
Right.
all do that. We can choose to have a different path. You can't escape the problems and challenges of life, but it
Right.
is amazing what you can accomplish when you're fortified by disciplines and virtues.
Amen. It's so true. Even in, fast forwarding to today's economy and what we're dealing with, a lot of people will go, well, COVID happened. Well, look at the administration that's in the office. Look at what we're dealing with. And you're like, no, we don't have to bow down to what's out there right now. We have a God that's greater than anything that we can
That's right.
ever stare down. So it's like lift up your head and follow the Lord.
Yeah.
And in his ways, and we will conquer any mountain that
Move
is
our
before
mountains.
us. Yes. And
Exactly.
so how long did you stay in missions? Was that a one-time deal?
Two
Did you
years.
continue 2
So
years?
two complete years.
Uh-huh.
You call your mom on Mother's Day and you call her on Christmas. Other
Oh
than that,
man.
you're there. You have letters and you have email. Now it's changed with modern technology. It's a little bit
Uh-huh.
more access to home. But one of the beautiful things about that is because of the limited connection, you're not constantly toyed with being homesick. Right.
Right.
And so it was
Right.
really helpful actually to be able to just be centered on the vision and purpose and what we were doing for the people that we were serving. So
Uh-huh.
the 2 years you pay for it, you don't get paid. So you actually you can't do it long term because you have to pay for it
Right.
yourself.
Yeah, you got
Um,
bills.
but yep. So you do that, and then you come back and you reintegrate with society. Go to school, figure out what you want to do. But yeah, it was a 2 year process of what I think is often overlooked on that, and by even those of us who are missionaries is my entire purpose every day for 2 years was to pray and ask God, what do I do today? Who do I help?
Right.
Right?
Mhm.
What do you want us? We did hundreds of prayers. We're
Mhm.
praying for what do we need to teach this family? Or where do we need to go?
Mhm.
Who do we need to serve today? How can we
Mhm.
show up and do that? Who do we ask for help? And so it's just this constant refinement process of learning to let your own will go, plan what you can, of course,
Mhm.
be a wise steward and plan it out. But at the end of the day, if you come to realize that God is in control over this process and he's there to help and you're willing to ask him, it sets
Mhm.
you up for, if you really pay attention. And now for the rest of my life, I realized it was setting a standard for me of how I would go
Mhm.
about doing things for the rest of my life is am I willing to turn to his will and follow it no matter
Right.
what?
Right. So, in turning to his will, what made you go into the field of entrepreneurship?
So I was on that mission. It was 18 months that I'd been there. To rewind, before my mission, I was a fence sitter. I was in both houses. I
Mhm.
was designating driving sometimes when I was 8 years old.
Mhm.
Like we had a very torn house. So I was also
Yeah.
king of partying, but I never drank.
Oh,
Right. So I'd
wow.
go to the parties. I was there. I'd buy the alcohol for my cousins when I was 14 because
Uh-huh.
I was 6'2".
Mhm.
But I didn't participate. And so
Right.
I had this tear in me where I loved and appreciated both sides. And so I go to college and I get a 0.33 GPA.
Oh my goodness.
It's hard to do.
Hard to do.
It's hard to do. You have to really screw it up to end up with that level of GPA.
Wow.
So I go on the mission knowing I'm going to come back more disciplined. I'll fix this later.
Mhm.
Right. But I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. I just wanted to get on the mission and go help people. And so I'm in this small town and I start teaching this family, and it's trippy because their oldest son of 6 kids, 9 years old,
Mhm.
looks exactly like my nephew.
Oh, wow.
And so now, and they lived in my room right now. I mean, you could
Mhm.
fit quite a bit of stuff in here. Their
Uh-huh.
house was smaller than this room, and it had a little divider, tin roof. It was a shack.
Mhm.
If you can call it that. It might have been worse. Dirt floors, and I'm imagining my nephew lives here. Like that's
Mhm.
really hard to emotionally process.
Right.
And so I can see around the corner of this little bitty like wall, and there's a thin twin size mattress, like
Mm-hmm.
foam pad. It's not even a mattress. It's just a foam pad.
Mm-hmm.
And mom weighed about probably 320, 350 pounds. I mean, she was a
Wow.
pretty big woman.
Yeah.
Dad was in and out of the picture all the time. And this mattress, this foam pad, you could see the dirt coming through the floor because of
Right.
how worn through it is.
Right.
And I'm trying to imagine, like, where does my nephew sleep? If she sleeps on that, and there's no everything else is dirt. There's nowhere else.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sign of blankets, no sign of nothing. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of emotions that are felt. And here comes Dad every
Yeah.
once in a while, and he's usually smoking cigarettes. And they've got dogs and cats everywhere, and I know these kids don't have food. So how the heck does he have cigarettes?
Mm-hmm.
Every bit of fighter in me wanted to just haymaker this guy.
You're right.
Just
Right.
crush him. But as a 20-year-old kid, I'm receiving these weird thoughts about, like, this hurts, but maybe he's the best she can do.
Hmm.
I'm thinking, what if he has like 5 families like this throughout the area?
Yeah.
And I'm just reserved, like, okay, like just do your thing. Well, one night I'm walking home with my companion. It's like 9:30. We're not supposed to be out that late, so we gotta get home fast. And I see a silhouette walking towards me on the road. And there's cloud cover. We can't hardly see anything, but he gets right up to me, and sure enough, it's my nephew. It's a kid that
Oh.
looks like my nephew. And we saw a lot of people who were hungry. We did not
Mm.
see a lot of people who were starving.
Right.
Here's my nephew right in
Right.
front of me. He's got that look of starving on his face.
Uh-huh.
And he says, "Can I have some bread?" "Puedo tener pan?" And I say, I don't have anything. Now I'm thinking, we're like 2 miles from town, mile and a half from town. I'm like, you got to go home. And my
Mm-hmm.
nephew looks down and hangs his head, walks around me just completely defeated.
Oh
And
man.
I've just sent my nephew to starve.
Mm-hmm.
So we're walking, and I'm with 3 people. They're both talking again. We're used to this. Like, this is not unusual to happen, but not with my own flesh and blood. Like, not
Right.
internalizing
Right.
that. Why can't I take this kid into town? Why can't I figure out what to do? And I start hyperventilating. And I'm like shaking. I'm thinking, I got this nice backpack on. I got these nice shoes on. I got a suit and tie on. Like, why do I get all of this? Why do I get so much? And he doesn't even get a piece of bread before he goes to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I started like, okay, I'm gonna go to the rice fields tomorrow. I'm gonna make some money. I'm going to eventually make enough money to open up a little computer store, because people here open these computer stores and they have money doing that. And, like, I'm gonna teach these people how to change their life. And whack, my face goes to the side, and I hear a voice that says, "Jackson, why don't you go home, take advantage of your education for once, learn about business, and help as many towns like this as you possibly can?"
Wow.
And I said, well, that's a better idea, first off.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, but isn't that selfish? Right? I really
Mm-hmm.
struggled with that. And I struggled with it a lot for years. But I knew that I already had my answer. I
Mm-hmm.
knew not to question God. Right? I knew that I needed to. All right. So I went home. I went to the BYU School of Business and went to the counselors, and I was ready with my prepped like speech. I know I messed up, and I know I can
Mm-hmm.
do this,
I
and
gotta
I'm
redo
ready.
this.
I've got to do this. And the
Mm-hmm.
counselor looked at me and he said, "Son, I've done some stupid things in my life, and I needed to change my direction at a point.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no way you're getting into the business school, but you will be fine. Change your major." And I walked out of that with an out of body experience. I remember the other kid that was in the room. I remember leaving and going, what the heck? I don't have
Yeah.
money for school anymore. I can't get a grant or a scholarship because I already screwed up. I know I'm supposed to be in business. He's wrong about this. What the heck do I do? And I didn't want to take loans out, especially not for a degree that I knew wasn't my path.
Right.
And didn't, in spite of all the things friends and family tell you you're supposed to do. Like, I knew that I was not supposed to abandon this. And I thought, I need to find a business owner who's willing to take a chance on me.
Wow.
I didn't even know the word entrepreneur, I don't
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Like I said, I need to find a business owner, and got into network marketing, came to find out that, holy crap, this is like a university for business ownership. I ended
Yeah.
up burning through money left and right, ended up racking up credit card debt. I made like $9 in 9 months, on
Oh man.
that path. But the knowledge I gained about leadership and about business and about doing things, I would have spent that money on my degree. I just had a
Mhm.
different path that I had to learn things from. So no, it wasn't a rosy path of like, hey, look at me, everything's going to be perfect and I've got the Midas touch.
Right.
But I had to learn lots of disciplines along the way, and I was never going to give up and abandon my vision and my mission, no matter how hard it was. That's not faith. That's
Right.
not faith at all.
Right.
That's just
No.
stubbornness, or pride.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how it
That,
started.
wow. You most of the time we hear stories, oh, well, he's a daddy's boy. He got the money. He's rich now. He leads the ministry. To
Yeah,
hear stories like that where you could really see the Lord leading, and then here comes the enemy going, no, no, you just because he knows,
yeah,
what you will do and
right.
accomplish that the Lord has put in you. That's amazing. So then you found this first class business,
Sure.
and helping people, and explain a little bit about what first class business is.
Yeah. So we've got a phrase that any superhero fan will love. If you go to the website, it says, "Hey, Batman, let
Right.
us be your Alfred."
Hmm.
Right. And for those who don't know, Alfred is the butler who raised Batman up and who was there to, when
Right.
Batman's out fighting crime, Alfred's back there making sure he doesn't die. He's doing all
Right.
the infrastructure stuff. He's taking care of the house. He's helping. And there's Mr. Fox who runs the company. And those are the types of things that we do with the leaders that we work with. Now,
Uh-huh.
a lot of people, there's a lot of solopreneurs in the world, and a lot of people wear that as a badge of honor.
Hmm.
In the world of actual success, meaning I'm talking about the entrepreneurs who are winning financially and they're growing with great leadership, and they're not claiming to be a one person unit. They have teams. They call solopreneurs wantrepreneurs.
Hmm. I've
You
heard of
don't want
this.
to be a wannabe,
Yep.
and if you want to be a great leader, and you maybe you are the unicorn who can do it all by yourself. But I've never met a successful solopreneur.
Right.
I've met solopreneurs who claim they're solopreneurs and who walk on all the people who help them get to where they are and take them for granted. I've met solopreneurs who lie that they do not
Hmm.
have teams. But when you get behind the scenes, or they lie and they're not actually as awesome as they are, maybe it's a boss babe whose husband actually funds everything.
Wow.
Maybe it's a man who, like you said, has inherited something from their parents, but entrepreneurship and business leadership is a team sport.
Very
It
much so.
requires caring about others, and you either have to step on people to be successful, or you've got to learn to appreciate people in order to be
Mhm.
successful. You can't do it without a community.
Right. Right. I've learned. I was listening to an episode of yours. You were a guest on an episode, and you talked about the 8 pillars of
Mm,
successful entrepreneurship. And when I started listening to those,
mm,
I was like, you gave powerful points to each one of them. But I think the ones that stuck out with me, and because of my faith, was attitude. You talked about attitude a lot. And I
mm.
think that, like with entrepreneurs, it really is our attitude and how we feel, how do I put this? How we look at our audience, how we look at our clients or our customers and what they are. Are we there to serve their needs, or are we above them and they're below? And I think
Yeah,
attitude is the biggest thing. And I think with that comes the hospitality, heart in it. And I was
love
just like amazed at all of the different pillars that you brought up, and grabbing that deep inner what you were really trying to say in that podcast. And I picked up on the characteristics of the heart as an
it.
entrepreneur, as a leader, because you talked about management versus a leader. And when you were asked that question, I was like, I know, because of being in the military, and I had my soldiers and I had my higher ups. That to me was my management. But a leader is one that's going to cheer them on, stand behind them, let them lead, and let them tell me what it is that you need to be successful in what they were doing, whether it's at war, whether it's business, whether it's a servanthood towards somebody. It's just, and it was an amazing, amazing episode that you did on the character of one's heart. And that's what I grabbed that so big. It was just so big in what you were speaking. And
It's level 2 of our foundation. So those pillars, we also apply them as layers of a foundation as
right.
well. And that first one is vision. It's getting centered on our love with God, in my opinion, right? That's what my vision ultimately ends up settling in on is, do I love God? How? Well, they said it, love your neighbor as yourself, right? You got to love yourself.
Right.
You got to love God. You got to love your neighbor. So, but the next phase for us is culture, right? And when we create a culture, we can create a culture a lot of different ways. Hot Topic has a culture, right?
Yes.
I don't fit in very well in that culture. I always feel a little bit awkward when I walk into that store. And it's okay. It's for them, right? It's for the people who gravitate towards that. Disney has a culture, phenomenal culture builders, right? They get a lot of people who gravitate towards them. What it does, it creates a belonging, right? So our culture, as you got to hear us talk about with some of those virtues, love is our foundation.
Right.
Patience, persistence, consistency, and reliability. Those attributes, when I can create a culture where that is how we operate, we can create accountability based on those attributes. And each one of those attributes lead to an extremely productive team. And we can test for those dynamics as well. And we can create what I call a combine, where if you can create a situation where supply and demand is in your favor by promoting the culture that you want to have created, well, if there's enough people out there who are attracted to that, they will come and they will want to be part of it. And it's so much easier to build success when you are attracting leaders to come to you versus trying to go out and say, well, I really like you, but you should change this and this about yourself, or please do things how we do them. Or like, business ownership is not leadership.
Right.
There's two different realities there. We've got to learn how to become great leaders if we want to empower people to come in and build with us. So glad you brought that part up.
Yeah, that was it's so spot on with what you're saying. I mean, you live it. I see it, just following you along out there, and it's just amazing. But I want to ask you, I like to shoot, especially with entrepreneurs, and I know you host your own podcast, and it's called, what is it, a visionary?
We have a couple. So the primary one is visionproslive.com.
Vision Pros, right.
And for any Latinos, Oportunidades Latinas, that we have a Spanish podcast as well.
Now are you leading that one? Are you finally fluent in your Spanish?
We're all. I'm just as fluent in English. No, we're all fluent enough to be dangerous, and I'm serious about that. It's one of those things where I'm about a 14, 15-year-old level, and so I don't know the innuendos or the double entendres, the double meanings, and so you can get in real trouble when you're an adult speaking. So I'll always be with a translator, but same is true in English. If you're not humble enough to recognize that we speak differently in different households and different cultures, then your arrogance is going to get the best of you.
Right. So Jackson, talk a little bit about what you can offer to those that are maybe in the entrepreneurship world or stepping into it. How can you help them grow and progress in their career field?
I'm going to use the scriptures on that. The scriptures say that Jesus learned precept by precept, line by line.
Right.
We as entrepreneurs don't have the discipline to want to do that. We want the magic button. We want to say that we're not big into get rich quick. That's not the thing. We just know that we really need to get this. Just admit it.
Right.
You're aligning with get rich quick, right? I need to work with people who I want to work with people who truly want to work with us,
Mhm.
right? Who want to take a step back, who want
Mhm.
to appreciate that leadership requires following books like this, The
Uh-huh.
Effective Executive by Peter Drucker, which I would say 99% of entrepreneurs haven't read. And even the
Right.
ones who have read it, they don't follow it. This book teaches to spend 2 to 3 hours with executives per week. I
Wow.
see people trying to do 30-minute coffee meetings all the time and rush
Right.
business decisions like this.
Yeah.
It says don't evaluate people based on days or based on weeks.
Mhm.
You got to evaluate your executives based on quarters.
Mhm.
Most entrepreneurs aren't sticking with their people for longer than 3 months.
True.
So those types of adjustments, right? The leadership, if you find a leader who you're gravitating towards, don't be intimidated by Tony Robbins because he's big and loud, right? Go and
Mhm.
talk to him.
Right.
If you want to talk, I got long hair. I mean, I know it's kind of scary. I got strange eyes. Some people say they're pretty, some people say they're scary. But this scripture right here too, right? And I'm gonna show this. I've retired these,
James.
right? I've
Uh-huh.
retired these scripture sets because the modern technology allows me to make notes faster. But
Uh-huh.
there's a dangerous power taking place right now that the people are leveraging more and more, and it's actually a scripturally led power, and it's
Mhm.
called the law of manifestation.
Ah,
And it's
yes.
the law of attraction. Then there's a beautiful power, just like fire and just like water.
Uh-huh.
They can do wonderful things and they can also create massive destruction. So it
Correct.
says, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, right? And it
Uh-huh.
says, knock and it shall be open unto you, right? And ask and
Right.
you shall receive. Well, there's two forces that will give us things. One
Mhm.
will give us everything that we want to our utter destruction. Right.
Right.
If we keep asking and we keep begging and we keep demanding from the universe all of our selfish endeavors, oh, we will very much
Oh,
receive
yeah.
all
Oh,
of our
you'll
selfish
get it.
endeavors. Right. So, on the flip side, the beauty of it, if we're willing to ask and willing to accept God's will and balance what we want with what we truly need, those
Mhm.
who are around us need, then we can still leverage the same type of power, but we have a security and protection that's important too. So my
Uh-huh.
suggestion to entrepreneurs is if that resonates with you, simply reach out and allow us to meet you where you're at in the
Mhm.
present, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Let's explore them on both sides. If we have a healthy dialogue and that leads to us wanting to work together, then we can build a scope of work that makes sense. And that's
Right.
easy to do. But what's
Right.
not easy to do is find leaders who are actually ready to lead well and who are ready to build their visions. Most of them still have pipe dreams. I can't build a
Mhm.
pipe dream. I've got to build a vision, but I'm only going to build a vision with an entrepreneurial leader that I believe in. I got to
Amen.
believe in your leadership.
Right. Amen. So, Jackson, how can somebody find you and say, "Hey, this is what I want. This is what I've been looking for."
I'm easy to find these days. So
Mhm.
visionproslive.com, firstclassbusiness.io. Come be my friend on Facebook. Come see what we got going on over there. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Don't hesitate to. But I ask that you come. Same thing Christ said, come with faith. Because the
Mhm.
rest of that scripture says, if you don't ask in faith, then you'll be like a wave of the sea tossed to and fro in the storm. So
Amen.
many entrepreneurs come into business conversations like this. So I've already hired people in the past that kind of do what you do. And how do I know you're never going to create a great relationship if you operate out of fear. You're only
True.
going to create a barrier and a situation where that person, I can't go to LeBron James and recruit him and say, well, will you come play basketball with me? Because I don't even know, don't be awkward. Let that stuff go. Come in
Mhm.
centered with who you are. Come in with some hope in place, some belief in place. And if
Mhm.
that's how you approach me, then I can help you move. If you
There you
approach me
go.
the other way, I'm going to send you to a doctor. You need a therapist, you need a coach, but
Yeah.
ready to take steps of faith if you're that scared of entrepreneurship.